In this video, I'm going to walk you through the only steps you need to get in the best shape of your life, even if you're someone who's really busy, whether you're in your mid to late 20s and you've got yourself a job and you're not too sure how many times you should train, you don't really know what the best nutrition protocol is, or maybe you're someone who's in the mid to late 30s or even 40s, you've got a family, you don't have much time, and you want the most optimal, time-efficient way to get in the best shape of your life without spending hours and hours in the gym or spending hours in the kitchen either. The last thing you want to be doing is spending a load of time researching online the best protocols you should follow when it isn't necessarily going to be optimal for you in your specific life circumstances and your goals. So recently I had a client come to me, and he was someone who was in his early 30s. He had a really busy job, he'd just had kids, and he wasn't too sure what the best protocol was for him to get into the best shape of his life. He'd sporadically been to the gym, had tried a few different routines, different programs, but hadn't really followed one for longer than a few months. Meaning he was going around in circles, leaving him feeling a little bit disheartened and a little bit frustrated as to why he couldn't stay consistent, why it wasn't working within his schedule. He was feeling almost down on himself that he couldn't actually get the results that he wanted to get because he had all of these other things in the background going on in his life. So when I first met up with him, I told him to walk me through what he had been doing in the past. What did his nutrition look like? What did his training look like? What were your recovery protocols? What is your overall day-to-day life like? What can you actually do? He looked online and he found that the best routine had him following a 5-day bodybuilder type split, which meant he was doing chest on Mondays, back on Tuesdays, legs on Wednesdays, arms on Thursdays, shoulders on Fridays. I think that's the one I've missed off. And then he'd repeat this cycle. And he was told that he had to spend an hour minimum, if not more, towards an hour and a half in the gym. And I said, okay, well, how did that go for you? What did you find were the biggest challenges? And maybe some pros as well. Not everything is going to be bad, right? And he said the main pros were that he was in the gym for a prolonged period of time. And by prolonged, I mean, relatively speaking, he was in the gym for around 8 weeks before he gave up on it. But the main cons were that he was spending far too long in the gym. He felt like he wasn't making much progress. And he felt like even when he was in the gym, he was quite sore, not actually seeing the visual progress that he wanted to. He felt like he was spending a lot of time in the gym and physical and mental bandwidth when he could have been spending that at work, with the family, with the kids, etc. And he said that left him feeling a little bit frustrated and a little bit lost as to what he should do and what protocol he should follow. So I asked him about his nutrition. He said his nutrition was the standard. He tried to track his calories a few times per week, but he said it was too time consuming, and he felt like on weekends it was too annoying. He was out with the family and it wasn't working for him. He tried to do the generic eating healthier foods, eating more fruit and veg, but it wasn't quite working for him. He wasn't actually finding something which he enjoyed. He felt like it was a chore, he wasn't enjoying the food he was eating, and it just didn't really work around his day-to-day life. And then I asked him about the recovery schedule. I said, how many hours of sleep per night do you get on average? And he said because he's a new dad, he only gets 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night if he's lucky. When he is at work, he's quite stressed in regards to he's got quite a high-powered job, and he didn't really feel like he was recovering very well at all because of the family, because of the job, and not getting much sleep. So obviously that's a major red flag there. And I said, what had he tried to overcome this? And he said nothing much. He hadn't really found anything online which actually helped him because of his circumstances. He felt like he just had to go to the gym, spend hours per week in there, and that would get him to the physique of his goals. So what I did with him was we stripped it right back. So we started on the analysis first. We did a bit of an assessment to see where his current fitness levels were, and also see where his biomarkers were as well. I've said in other videos, this isn't essential, but you can go online now and you can get certain blood samples to see exactly where your health is at. Obviously take some body measurements as well in regards to body fat percentage, although it's not always accurate. And also you can take some body measurements such as your arms, chest, legs, etc. So that was step one. We needed to set a baseline. We needed to understand exactly where he was at. Because if we didn't do this, we wouldn't understand how much progress he was making. We wanted to actually see visual data on his starting point, and then we could do it a few months down the line and actually see how much progress he had made. So that was step one. We did a health assessment. Step two was we needed to sort out his training. So his goals were more about physique and general health. It was just for looking good and feeling healthier. And as you can remember a few minutes ago, he told me that he was working a lot. He wasn't sleeping a lot, and he'd recently just had a kid as well. So this means that he isn't going to be able to spend hours in the gym, nor does he need to spend hours in the gym. So what I said is, let's strip it right back. Let's start on 3 full body sessions per week. around 45 minutes. Some days, if you feel like you can get in more, great. Obviously, other days where you are time constrained, we can shorten it down. And those full body sessions would consist of doing all muscle groups, so chest, shoulders, back, thighs, tries, and legs, all in one session. And the first thing he said was, surely I'll be in the gym for longer if I'm doing that compared to doing the typical roll split of a single body parts per session. And I said to him, no, because in each full body session, we might do 1 or 2 exercises per muscle group, meaning that you're only going to be spending 45 minutes per session. 2 to 3 sets per exercise, which means you're looking at around 6 exercises per session. There's no messing about, you're in, you get the job done, and you are out. This is with high intensity, not the highest amount of volume, but making sure we are stimulating the muscle to grow, but we're doing it in the most time efficient way possible. So we had him doing this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I said, look, what times do you work on average? Are you starting early morning? Are you staying late? When would be the best time to train? And he told me that he was mixing his training a few months ago. He said he would try to do some early morning sessions. He tried to fit some in at lunchtime in between work, and then he'd try a few in the evening. And I said, right, well, let's try and get to the point where we can stick a day and time in your diary every single week so that you can commit to this and you know exactly when you are actually training. So we said, right, if you're not sleeping very much, let's try the evening first. So we started out doing 7 p.m. sessions. So what we found is that the evening sessions weren't best. He was tired from work. He wasn't really motivated as much in the evenings. So we actually started and switched it to morning sessions. It wasn't too early. It wasn't like a 6 a.m. session. It was more of a 7:30 session where he had time to get an extra hour sleep and then he'd come to the gym. And what we found was this was great. He could get in the gym, get the 45-minute session done, and he could get to work and focus all of his mental bandwidth on work, and then he could get home and not worry about going to the gym. So that was the second step. We sorted out his training, 3 full body sessions per week, 45-minute sessions on each, and it was early morning sessions before work. Third one was the nutrition. As I said before, he struggled to stay consistent. What I did was the first 2 weeks we did a bit of a trial and error period, as I like to say with a lot of my clients. I need to understand the current nutrition habits. So what I found is the first 2 weeks he was consuming far more calories than he thought he was. He said to me that he thinks that he was consuming around 2,000 to 2,200 per day. What we found is that it was closer to 3,000. On weekends, when he'd have a few alcoholic drinks as well, it was much more than this. It was more towards the 3,500, if not towards 4,000 some days. Hence, not being able to lose much body fat and not losing any weight either. So what I did is I got him on some maintenance calories after this, so we could almost see how his body would respond to that. So we give him a chance to build some muscle, and then we could potentially go into a deficit where we could look at dropping body fat in the future. So for the first 2 weeks, we got him tracking his calories religiously to see where it was at. Then after that, it was much more flexible, including foods that he enjoyed, but making sure that he wasn't going over or under eating either, to make sure that he could recover. We also needed to make sure that he was eating meals which suited his day-to-day life. We made sure that breakfast was the same meal every day, same as my own actually, which is protein oats. He made it the night before, or would make it in the morning because it'd only take 5 to 10 minutes. He would pre-package something the night before, some type of food that he enjoyed, something which was high in protein, moderate carb, and moderate fat. And then in the evening, he had free reign to mix it up a little bit with his partner. And this meant, again, it was high protein, but something a little bit more tasty, which he felt like he had a little bit more flexibility over, but obviously staying within his calories. So that was the third step. We absolutely revamped his nutrition, which worked much better. And fourth one was a recovery protocol. So what we found is that he wasn't sleeping very well. We need to make sure we've got a specific step-by-step guide to actually being able to get to sleep. Obviously, if you've got kids, it's going to be different than if you don't have kids, but there's still a general guideline we can follow. So the first step was 3 hours before bed, try and finish your last meal so everything's digested and your body's temperature isn't rising too much right before bed, which obviously would make you struggle to sleep. Step 2 was no more emails 2 hours before. Step 3 was within 90 minutes before bed, make sure that you are actually in bed and your room is cool. Step 4 is no screens. So 1 hour before bed, try not to be looking at your phone, watching TV, iPads, etc., etc. Do something which is relaxing so you can wind down. And after a few weeks, he noticed a massive difference. Obviously, it wasn't 100% consistent because having a newborn child, that can obviously throw a spanner in the works a little bit, but he had a guideline and a framework to follow to help him be as consistent as possible, which made sure that he was sleeping on average every week better and for longer, which meant he was recovering better, which also meant he had more energy for his workouts and his day-to-day life at work. And step 5 was the lifestyle. So this is a slightly more holistic overview of how the previous 4 steps are linking together. So making sure that he was doing everything that he could in the most time-efficient, simplest way possible. So having the assessment so we knew where his biomarkers and his current fitness level was. His training was efficient, which we would look over and analyse every few weeks to make sure he was progressing, but it also was fitting in his schedule. Same applies to his nutrition, make sure he's hitting his calories and his body was responding to that. And number 4 was making sure the recovery was on point. And after just 3 months, he was able to actually lose around 8 pounds because we put him in a slight deficit after the maintenance phase, and he continued to gain strength and his body composition changed massively. All because we just nailed those 4, if not 5 steps, if you want to call it that. And this can be done for someone who's in the early 20s, whether you're a student, whether you're in your late 20s like myself and you work but don't have kids yet, or if you're in your 30s or 40s or even 50s, if you've got kids and you've got a job which requires a lot of your attention and time, and you've got your family, social life, etc., etc. We've got to do what works for you. Obviously, if you want to get in the best shape of your life, you need a protocol to follow. If you're training, you need to make sure that you're applying the progressive overload principle, which refers to progressing in some way, shape or form over time, whether that be in regards to the weight you put on the bar, for example, when you're doing bench press, squats, deadlifts, etc., whether you are increasing the sets, whether you're increasing the reps. In some way, shape or form, you need to be making progress over time. Once all those boxes are ticked, it essentially just comes down to consistency. How long can you do this? If you've got a training protocol which works for you, you can see yourself doing it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, then great. If you feel like this is something which is a bit more short term and you can't see yourself doing it in a few years' time, then maybe it's not the right one for you. But as long as you follow all of these steps, assessment, training, nutrition, recovery and lifestyle, I can guarantee there's absolutely no reason why you can't get into amazing shape and be able to sustain it for the long term. If you want a full free assessment of your body health and performance, head to the link in the description and you can take a completely free assessment to see exactly where your challenges and strengths lie.